Welcome to Success with Soul, Yael. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
So, you and I have some cool things in common, I think, because some of what I've by accident become known for is that I have taken several maternity leaves and made really good money while I was on them, not working at all. And people are always like, "Wait, I need to know how you did this." And then in 2020, with the pandemic, I had no childcare. I had two under two. It was a shit show, but my business actually doubled in revenue and I was working less than ever before. So people are always like, I don't understand how you're a mom and how you take these leaves and you spend time with your kids and you have a successful business. And you have a business that's basically all about baby proofing your business.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love it. I
Yeah.
feel like we're going to have so much to get into. And right before we hit record, we were just starting to laugh because I was like, wait, I thought I was crazy with two kids and you have five
Yes.
and you want more.
And I want more. I do. I forgot how I took like a long break. I like to say like I had my first four and then I started my business. So I like to just joke that I had like my business instead of my next baby because my kids are all about 2 years apart.
Okay.
So like around the time when I would normally get pregnant is when I really started my business. So after four and a half years, I had my most recent baby, my first baby girl after four boys.
Oh my goodness.
I know it was crazy. And it was a surprise. I didn't know she was a girl. So it was a huge surprise. Like when she was born, I think I kept like checking to make sure she was a girl for like 45 minutes. Like I could not really believe
like, are you sure we didn't just miss something? It's tucked away somewhere.
I know. I was like, I just sobbed. Like I just sobbed nonstop for 45 minutes because I'm so much shock. I was totally expecting boy number 5 to pop out. I'm like, I even had the name and everything. And then it was not. And the funny thing is having her and like having older kids now, like my oldest is now 11. It's just such a different, I mean, you just said you had 2 under 2. That is really hard. Like I also had 2 under 2. My first two were under 2 years, 21 months apart. And it's hard, like to have a bunch of little kids. That is like those first, like I had 4, 6 and under. My fourth one was born when my oldest had just turned 6.
Oh my God.
And that was really like, that's not easy. Right. But like, once your kids start to get a little older, you really appreciate the baby stage so much more. So like when I had her, I was like, I forgot how fun this is. They're so small and cuddly. And then they stay where they are when you put them down.
Yes.
And all they need is just food and sleep and they want you to hold them. Like there's no like complicated emotions. Right. And there's no like, you're not listening to me and you insulted me and I'm having a problem in school. It's like just so sweet and simple, but I'm just like, I just need this for longer. I need more of this in my life. So like, yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that because when we just had my first and it was just my husband and I and one little baby. And I remember thinking like, this is so hard. Everything was so new. I spent so much time just like Googling things and reading books and making sure, you're like so worried that you're doing the right thing. But then we had our second and I mean, it was crazy town when they were both at home, but then sometimes my parents would take my son and then we would just be with the newborn and we were like, this is so easy. What were we so stressed out for, before the first time? And I realized like, oh, it's because now we know what to do. So we're not like, now we can just hang out and I don't have to freak out about every little thing that happens. But the newborn stage and the like infant, young, toddler, baby stage overall, I feel like is very physically exhausting and demanding, but mentally it's like you said, there's no like complicated emotions really. I mean, toddler, maybe we're getting a little bit there, but it's still relatively easy. So I feel like you just kind of trade one for the other. Like
for sure.
not as like chasing them around. Everything they do is like danger, they could die. And you're not in that survival mode, but you trade it for like, okay, now I actually have to like raise a human and hopefully a good one.
I mean, now we're in a different kind of survival mode. Now they just have to survive each other at this point. At this point, I'm just trying to I have like four boys, right? So like they're all about 2 years apart. So I'm just constantly just pulling them off each other. Like I'm just like, just stop. Like literally, if I have to leave the house or anything, I just pray that they're all like still alive when I come home. Like I'm like, that's pretty much like that's my best case scenario. I'm like, just as long as you all no one killed each other, no one's like bleeding. And I don't even consider nosebleeds bleeding anymore because my 7-year-old gets nosebleeds, like he randomly gets them. And it's funny because I started saying, I'm going to my room to put my baby to bed. I'm like, do not come into this room unless the house is on fire or somebody's bleeding. And then I'd see my 7-year-old like open his mouth and be like, not a nosebleed. Nosebleeds don't count as bleeding.
Like an
It's like
injury
actually
bleed.
from
That's
a
it.
wound,
Yeah.
you know? But the truth, it's really funny that you said that because first of all, I was totally that mom. I have an entire bookshelf full of baby books, full of baby, of like baby eating, baby sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
like pregnancy, like all the things. I was like, I'm like the ultimate researcher. And I'm like, there
Yeah.
must be like the magic bullet somewhere in one of these books to tell me like how I'm going to get the baby to sleep. It might happen to be my first baby was my actual like most intense, hardest baby of all my children. And the rest of them, I mean, they weren't easy, but they were easier than him.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when after 6 weeks after I had my fourth baby, so we had a 2-year-old and him. He was like 6 weeks old. And my husband and I flew to London to his cousin's wedding, and we left the 2 bigger boys at home, with my parents. And we were on the plane with like a baby and a toddler, and we just look at each other and we're like, we remember doing this with our 2 older ones, and we thought that was so hard. And now it's just us with these 2 little. I'm like, this is a piece of cake. Like, why do you think that was so difficult? Like, what's wrong with us? And I found even now, when one kid leaves the house, it changes the entire dynamic. Like, I have one, my 9-year-old right now is out and had a sleepover. And like the whole evening was so much calmer.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter which kid. It could be any
Of
kid.
them. Yeah.
Right? Because it's just like there's a certain kind of dynamic in the house, and like you move one variable and all of a sudden everything changes. So like, yeah, it's a whole different reality, I think, to have like a baby with older kids. I mean, my oldest son, he changes her diapers. Like,
Yes.
he can change her diapers, dress her, like watch her, feed her. Like my kid, my 3 oldest ones can feed her food.
Right.
Like,
that's so nice. Yeah.
It's so nice.
Right. Now my son is 2.5. My daughter's 9 months old now. And it's gotten so much easier, but that beginning when they were both like truly babies was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we're going to make it. Like, this is so hard.
No, before you have to get into a good routine. Like, once you get into a routine, like what happens when, like, even like I remember the bedtime routine, just trying to figure out, like, after I had my second, like how do I bathe both of them? And like, how do I get them both to bed? Like, there's like, what do I do? And like, but once I figured out, like, I would actually bathe them together. And then I would like take the baby out and put it in the baby seat, and then take the older one out and and then like, I would put the baby's diaper on first. I would put the toddler diaper on. Once I figured out like a rhythm, like, then it did become like much simpler. And then the cool thing is when they entertain each other, it's so much harder for me to imagine having one. Like, I always say, like, people are like, oh, I'm one and done. I'm like, don't do that. Just have 2, because like then they won't, they'll leave you alone. Like, they'll just entertain each other. Like, there's so much more ease in having like someone else in the house to like occupy them, whether it's by entertaining or by driving them crazy. It doesn't really matter. At least they're not driving you crazy, right? So like,
right.
Either way,
that's been cool to see now that they're really like playing with each other. And now my daughter's old enough now that she like has more personality. She's playing with him, like. So I do hope they're 20 months apart, and I'm like, I think they'll be really close. I hope. Okay, but let's go back here.
Total side.
Well, I know a lot of our listeners are moms, and so they can definitely relate to a lot of what we're sharing here. But how old is your youngest now?
So she's 8 months old, almost.
8 months.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So very close. Okay.
Very close.
And then your business is how old?
So it's about 4.5 years old.
Okay.
So I started when my then baby was about 9 months old.
All right. And now I saw this on your website. You grew your business from 0 to 6 figures in 18 months with, at the time, 4 kids. And now you've added a 5th.
Yeah.
How? Let's start with a real easy question with a simple answer. How did you do it?
How did I do it? These 3 simple steps. I'm kidding. No, it's not. But no, the truth is, I think that it was really not easy, because I really was starting from scratch is not the word. Like, I didn't even finish high school. Okay. I did not finish because my family moved to Israel. I moved from New York to Israel when I was a teenager, like a preteen basically. And I did not do very well in high school here because of the culture. It was just culture shock. It was just a really difficult situation. It's hard enough as a teenager just to get through high school, but then to like move to a new country in a different language and have to like deal with all of that. It was really difficult. And I ended up, meeting my husband when we were 7. I think the first time I met him was when we were 16, 17 years old. He's my friend's brother. And we got married when we were 18 and 19. I did not finish high school. I didn't go to college. I had no higher education whatsoever except for like what I could read, like I'm like an avid reader. I've been reading since I was 4 years old. So I like to know stuff. I like to like gather information. And so I definitely had a lot of mindset stuff at the beginning of like not feeling like qualified to do anything because I didn't go to college. Like why would anyone hire me to do anything if I didn't go to college? That, and I have like a sister the sister below me got a master's in educational psychology, and the next one is a nurse, right? And my brother's doing industrial engineering, right? So it's not, and my parents are a doctor and a lawyer. All right.
Oh,
so this is coming, this is
So
coming
you're the
from like a
black
very
sheep.
educated family, right? I'm like this, like, high school sucked, so I left. It was pretty much like that. And but the truth was, it was definitely a journey. Like, starting off with like, oh, I'll be a mommy blogger because I'm a mommy and I can do vlogging, right? And then realizing that vlogging is a very long-term income strategy, which does not necessarily, contribute to. And that's what I was really starting in the first place, because we had our fourth baby. I was a stay-at-home mom, and my husband was like, after a few months after he was born, he was like, listen, I mean, like, you've managed to stay home till now, but I really don't think we can afford it anymore. Like, you really need to get a job. And I was like, I can't, because what am I even qualified to do? Like, even if I got like a minimum wage full-time job, like the difference in like my wage and the amount it would cost me to like put my baby in daycare would be like minimal. Like, we would not be walking away with a lot at all. Like, not enough to make it worth it. I was like, I didn't have this baby so I could leave him, I was like very like, very firm on that, because my mom quit being a lawyer to stay home with us. And she was like, I'm sick of never seeing my children. And she literally quit when I was 6 years old. And I very much grew up with that like mentality of like, it's important to be there for your kids. And so I started like, exploring, as one does, researching, what can you do online? What can you do from home? And, I saw all these different things. I tried cake decorating. I did photography at one point. I did gift basket making. I mean, I tried all kinds of stuff, right? And then I realized like, I'm good at computers. I'm good at writing. I could be a blogger. And then I ended up becoming a blogging VA because, again, like I said, blogging is not a great, is a long-term income strategy.
So you gotta be careful, because what I teach is blogging as an income strategy. And so
but for sure, but it's not like you can't like start blogging and start making thousands of dollars a month like in a second.
Immediately. Right.
You know what I mean? Like it basically wasn't going to be.
Oh, you're saying blogging is a longer term strategy.
It's a longer term income strategy.
I see what you're saying. I thought you were saying blogging is not a long term income strategy.
No, blogging it's a longer term income strategy.
Yeah.
It takes time to build it up, basically.
Yes.
And it was time that I didn't have. Frankly, it was time we didn't have. And so and what I actually recommend to, I'm saying anyone who's starting a blog, and saying as someone who started a blog, right? At the beginning, and this is what I did. I wasn't planning on stopping my blog, honestly, but I figured like I'm learning all of these skills. So I may as well make some money in the meantime, selling my skills to other people, like to other bloggers. So it's actually a really cool way to kind of, I had like a services sheet, like a services page on my blog.
Yeah.
So people were finding me, and I started getting a bunch of blogging clients just like that, as a blogger, being in blogging groups. And since I'd already learned the stuff for my own blog, I was able to do it with other people. So like, it's a great kind of like interim sort of thing as you're growing your audience as a blogger and as you're growing your traffic. So now I don't mean to like put down blogging. I'm not saying blogging is not.
No, I understand now. I misunderstood what you said before.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it was going to take longer than we currently had at the time, right? And it's funny because at the time
I say blogging is a slow burn, and so I made over 100,000. Let's see, what was it? 150,000 by my third year, but you might not have 3 years to start bringing in that kind of money.
Exactly.
It does take a while, and it depends on what kind of money are you looking to make. Maybe you only are looking to make 50,000. I'm like, oh, I could teach you how to do that in a year. But if you need more than that, it's a slow burn.
Exactly. Yeah. It's and I was like, okay, I'm cool with that. It's going to take time. But in the meantime, a friend of mine was like, listen, I know a lot of people who are looking for VAs. Like, why don't you learned all this stuff. You're good at it. Why don't you just start selling your time? And I was like, okay, I can do that. Right. So that's what I started doing. I got my first VA client at $15 an hour, and I was like so freaking proud of myself. And I was like, just 3 of these, and I could hit like $1,000 a month. Like, how awesome would that be? And I remember saying to my mom, like, I can make $1,000 a month. She goes, wow, that's a lot of money. I'm like, I know, like I'm feeling so proud of, of myself, because I'm coming from like, again, like no real, no qualifications whatsoever. Right. But as I started doing the VA work, I realized I actually kind of like that more than like having to grow my own thing. Right.
Yeah.
I like being able to just like do the marketing. I started doing more social media marketing, and then I started moving into Facebook ads, and then into sales funnels, and then like marketing strategy in general. And I kind of fell in love with the whole marketing
Yeah.
side of things. And I was like, this is fun. Like this is so much fun. I love it. I love planning it. I love doing it. And so I just basically shifted out of the blogging thing into like full on, done for you marketing. So like funnels and ads generally, and doing launches and things like that. And I did pretty well with that. But I was working a lot more than I wanted to be, right? And I definitely, like, if I could say one of the big mistakes that I made was I did not hire people to help me early enough. And I looking back, I mean, obviously everyone has to have a journey, but I should have hired some help earlier than I did. I did eventually, but not as quickly as I should.
Yeah.
But as I was growing that, yeah, it's you're only one person. And I think that because God knows we're all very, very capable of so many things. Like we're very good at, bloggers and online business owners are very good at learning all kinds of things to help them grow their businesses. And so because we can do all these things, we don't think to hire someone else to do them because we're like, but I can do it myself, right? Like I learned how to do it, right? But like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that's like something I tell my clients now all the time. I'm like,
yeah,
I had one client who was like, I have to put together this funnel and I keep putting it off because I have all this client work and like, I really want to have this done. And I was like, why don't you hire someone else to do it? And it was really like, she had the copy, she had everything. She just needed some like tweaks. And she found someone to do it for like, I don't know, $250. And it's like this weight off her shoulders. And I was like, sometimes, you really have to weigh the cost benefit analysis here. Like sometimes in order to keep things going, the bloggers I was working with were able to keep going and putting out their content and doing all that stuff because I was able to help them, right? With like with the other stuff. So I think it's a good thing to remember as well. Like we very often take a lot on ourselves, especially as moms, right? Yeah. We tend to default to, I'll just do it myself. It'll be faster. Right. Whether it comes to in our house or in our business.
And we're conditioned to like, we're celebrated for being super women, for doing it all. And so it makes us feel guilty or bad about ourselves when we're like, I can't do it all, or I need help, or it would be nice if I had help. And so there's so much like unlearning that we have to do about, the conditioning that we've had that tells us we should be able to do everything and do it by ourselves. And that's the goal. And I'm like, that is not my goal.
No. I know at this point, I'm doing all the hiring. This year is like my year of delegation where I'm like, and I'll get to that. But like, basically what happened was I grew this and I was doing great. And I was like hitting, 6-figure years plus, doing all this stuff. And then November 2019, I found out that I was pregnant with baby number 5. And I was like, well, shit. I mean, I was excited about it. Okay. Because I wanted to have another baby. And it's funny because we were kind of trying, like we weren't like trying, but like not trying. We were just like, let's see what happens, and it wasn't really happening. So I'm like, oh my God, like maybe I'm just getting old. I mean, I'm not old, I'm 30. Right. But like, I'm like, maybe I'm just getting old. Like, who knows? Like maybe it's just, and then all of a sudden I was, and I was like, oh my God, like, I know it's going to happen in about 3 weeks. I'm going to like fall flat on my face and not be able to like move for a good, like 10 to 12 weeks. Like I know this about myself. Like first trimester is terrible.
Terrible. Yeah.
And I realized at that point that the business I was building just wasn't congruent with the life that I wanted to lead. Mm-hmm. Right. It just wasn't aligned with what I wanted to be doing. And I realized again, I don't want to let my clients down. And I realized that, at that point, the way I was serving my clients, between the offers that I had and the way I was serving them and the level of involvement that I personally had in their stuff, was not going to allow me to be that reliable person for them anymore after I had a baby, because babies are by their nature
a lot of work.
Like, I don't even know what they are. Like unreliable is a very, very weak word for what they are.
Yeah.
Right. But they're like, I'm type A and babies are like the anti-type A. Right?
Totally. I felt like that's one of the hardest parts of like trying to work when you think, oh, well, babies sleep a lot, I could get a lot done. And it's like, but you don't know when. Like my babies never slept when they were supposed to, or not. Like it was, or some days they would, and you'd think like you'd have a couple days in a row and you're like, all right, now I know from 12 to 2, I can get my work done. And then something else happens. And
then the next day they're like, you know what? 12 to 2 wasn't working for me. So,
and then like, I'm on to the next schedule. And you're like, no.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I always say like my baby, this baby was quite diabolical, and she like was like randomly like sleeping. She like he would randomly like give me a full night, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, she's so good. Like wow, look at her sleeping through the night. Like she's earlier than all her brothers. Like this is amazing. And then the next few nights she'd be like, you know what, forget it. I tried that, didn't work for me. I'll go.
Let's wake up
I'll
every
go back.
hour for the
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so I was like, you know what, I wanted to figure out like, okay, so obviously something about like my business was not going to work for me, going forward.
Mhm.
um and so I started much more incorporating like other things into my business. I started doing some programs and like some shorter programs, some master classes, and I actually launched my what now is my signature program. It was like the second version of it. Like I'd kind of run it once over an 8-week kind of thing. Then I realized, okay, people need more. I ran it for 3 months. Now it's 6 months. But like I ran it, I'm like, you know what? Like I have so much knowledge. I know how to grow my business. I can help service providers and coaches grow their business. I know I can do it. So let me just help them do it. And it went really, really well. It came right up to my due date. I think I did my last call like a couple days before I was due with my baby, or a couple days before I even had my
Wow.
baby. Sorry. And I was like, okay, like this is what I need to be doing. And the funny thing is, as I was incorporating these other things like this, all these different offers, and like, I was still doing client work. I was still, doing launches with my clients and funnels with my clients and stuff. And I said goodbye to my last done for you client like a week or two before I had my baby. And I was
Yeah.
like, you should just know you're gonna be my last funnel client. She goes, what, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. Like this is not gonna work for me. And I don't mean this to say no one should have an agency and no one should sell done for you services,
Right.
right? Because there is a way to do it, right? That can work for you and that will enable you to take maternity leaves without worrying about it and having a whole team. But what I realized about myself is that thank God I have many people in my life that I need to manage. And the idea of having to manage like a whole agency just did not
Yeah.
appeal to me. And that would be the only way I could remove myself enough to take breaks and not have the whole business depending on me, right?
Right. Right.
So I'm like, okay, so I was able to shift my offers. My marketing became like I was able to market my business in like under 30 minutes a day. And I was just I mean, I don't like to say money was rolling in because it sounds so like whatever, but like my business grew. Okay. It
Mhm.
grew, and after like a first trimester where I basically didn't work at all because I was so sick and exhausted, I was
Yeah.
making like $0. I mean, like I made like $1,000, like, in 1 month, and then like $2,000 the next month because I could not take on any clients. And when I
Mhm.
came back to work, everything just exploded. People were like almost like on a waiting list for me, like, oh my gosh, I need your help. I need your help. And I'm having like 15K, 20K, 25K months and I looked at my numbers at the end of 2020 after I figured out that I wanted to be launching these coaching programs. I wanted to kind of structure my business differently based on what my business needed and what my life needed.
Mhm.
And I actually made the same amount of money in 2020 as I did in 2019. And I think I didn't work about like close to 5 to 6 months out of
Yeah.
2020, which is
Amazing.
insane,
Yeah.
right? So like had I worked the same amount, I would have made double, right? Like, and I was like, wow, so this works. Like this whole like like kind of like rejigging of your business
Yeah.
to make it work for you can work and it can still be super profitable. I was like,
Right.
okay, I need to do something about this. Like this is amazing because I was able to have my baby, do like a weekly coaching call, like with the right clients. I didn't care if I had to hold my baby during the coaching call or whatever. Like it was just so like fun, and I thought that I was finally making money in a way that I loved and
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. And I was working with the people that I wanted to work with, and like everything just felt like so different. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, like, this is it. This is my business. Like this business is baby proof. And that's like where I came up with the name for my program, which is the Baby Proof Business Accelerator. It's like literally that. Like I want people to be able to build a business that works around their life, whether it is retainer clients, whether it's social media, whether it's doing, funnel projects, or whether it's doing coaching. I don't care. It doesn't really matter, but it has to like work for you and for the hours that you have in the day, right? Because I tried the all-nighter thing, multiple times. Really
No
like
fun.
no fun and not great. I mean, I put on so much weight during those years where I was like hustling around the clock. Like it was not healthy at all,
Right.
and
Stress. Yeah.
um, it's just not. So I was like, you know what, like people need to think. I think people think that like it's just it's like things are just impossible. It's like you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Like and I think you can. I mean, maybe you
I
shouldn't be eating that much
totally
cake,
think you can.
but
Yeah, I
like,
mean, I've been in the middle of a launch myself as at the time of this recording, and one of
yeah,
my big messages is like, I think we're told, particularly as women, you can have your business or you can have your life or a family,
yes,
but you really can have both, and it doesn't require that you like give everything of yourself and there's nothing left, and like, and I don't know, I feel like I need to come up with a catchier way of like, it's not that I'm saying you can have it all. It's more that I'm saying like you can have the life that you want if you're willing to like delegate, let go of some control, create a business that is not totally reliant on you having to show up and like do the work, the time for dollars trade and all of that. But of course, that's a mouthful. I need to catch your way to say that.
I know, right? No, I think it's like, I mean, one of my coaches said it really well. It's like you can have it all, but you don't have to do it all.
Right.
Like, or you
Exactly.
can't do it all, right? You can have it all, but you can't do it all, which is
Yeah.
true. Like, we are just human beings, and we, again, like, we overestimate what we can do, right?
Mhm.
One of my coaches calls it trying to alter the laws of time and space. Like, we're like, I can do all that in an hour. I'm like, no, we can't.
No,
We
you
cannot do
can't.
all that in an hour. I mean, like there's only so much, right? And
Right.
it's really a matter of like, again, like prioritization of, when I was a stay-at-home mom, I was like a Pinterest stay-at-home mom. Like, I was like the one who like did mommy camp and did all the projects and had all like the menu planning and like the cleaning schedules, and I made my
Mhm.
kids like fancy cakes, and like now my kids have one cake they get for their birthday. They have like the giant cupcake,
Yeah.
those giant cupcake pans. And I make that is the birthday cake of the Bendahan family. There's no jungle cake, there's no castle cake, there's no teddy bear picnic. I'm like, those days are over. Okay, that was when mommy had time for that, right?
But guess what? All
But you know
that
what?
stuff, like the kids didn't care.
They
You were almost doing it
didn't
like for you. Like it made
really.
you feel good to be like, look, I made this amazing cake for my kid. And your kid's just like, it's cake. I don't care.
I know. Can I eat that giraffe now? Like,
Yeah.
like the giraffe you worked so hard to like painstakingly make. Exactly. It's and my kids now like, well, like they look at pictures, they'll be like, wow, remember when you used to make those cakes? I'm like, yeah, but like, you know what? Like, I can spend time making those cakes until late at night and wake up very, very cranky in the morning and be very cranky with you guys, or I can make the cake. I mean, like, it's really, or I can just like make the easy cake that is still very delicious,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then everyone's, and then I'm not cranky, like it's
Right.
really, I think it's just like deciding what is more important to you. I guess it's
Yes.
like, and not everything has to be. That's the
Right.
thing.
Not everything is important. I think that's one of the things, like the lessons that I've learned in the last couple of years, especially is like I do the Eisenhower matrix where you have
Yes.
your, important and urgent, not important. And at first, like the first couple weeks you do it, you put everything in the important and urgent.
Important and urgent. Yeah.
And then
You're
you
like,
start realizing, you know what? This actually, maybe what if I put this in the not important but urgent column, or urgent but not important? And then all of a sudden you start like working that way and you realize like there's really only like 5 things I do in a week that are important. And everything else is kind of just like busy work and micromanaging and checking in on things to just be like so hyper aware of every single thing that's happening. And yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so one question for you that I hear, I say this myself, I hear a lot of other coaches and online business owners talking about like, okay, yeah, you can be a mom and you can have a business. How does it work for you? Because I think some people hear that and they think I can be a stay-at-home mom with no childcare and have a business. And that has not been my experience. Has that been your experience?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so I know, and I say this as okay. Okay, let me just I have to qualify this. Okay, until I had my baby, my kids. So when I started my business, I started sending my current baby at the time out for like 3 hours a day, like 3 or 4 times a week, right?
Mhm.
So there was no like major like I didn't have a nanny or anything, but like I had some time during the day in which to get stuff done. I got a lot done at night. I am a night owl, so I tend to do a lot of like really good work at night. Um, and again, it's kind of like is it more important to get the work done or that my kids get to school on time in the morning? Sometimes the work is important, and that just is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But like, until I had my okay, I'm not gonna say not till I had my baby, until COVID happened. Okay, which the funny thing is, I'm like in my first trimester, and I'm like, oh my god, I feel terrible, and like this is horrible, but it's gonna be there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like going to about 16 weeks, I'll be fine, and around 16 weeks was like March. you know
You're like, wait.
so I get pregnant and coronavirus is like this like far away like Chinese thing that like no one's even
Yep.
really thinking about. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm ready to rejoin the world. And everyone's like, well, guess what?
World
Different
shut
world now.
down.
And my kids were all home from school, on Zoom school, which as we all know has been absolutely wonderful for the children of the world. I mean, they're just loving it. I say that, yeah, no, they're not. It's been hard. It was actually horrible. And it was also right before Passover. So like, I don't know how much you know about that, but like it's a big freaking deal. It's like spring cleaning on steroids, basically getting ready. And it was the first time I actually did it alone. Normally we go to my parents, to my husband's parents, for the big meals and everything.
Yeah.
But we couldn't because my mom actually has my mom has asthma, and we were worried the kids might pass something on to her. And they live across the street from me, and we like literally did it all by ourselves. We didn't see them for like months. It was horrible. And so the funny thing was, I say this like, yeah, until I had my baby, my kids were all in school, but it's not true. Even before I had my baby, my kids were not in school. And so what I learned is, again, you have to decide what's important to you. And sometimes your kids just have to watch a heck of a lot of Netflix while you get stuff done. And that is what, like, is it better for them? Is it good for them to have that much screen time in a day? Probably not. Was it necessary at the time? Yes. It was. That was my childcare, because you couldn't even bring anyone in. That's the problem. No one's going around to other people's houses doing stuff. Like I could barely get my cleaner in. I still have my cleaner once a week. Like that was like, she was okay because she was whatever. I don't know. She's like, I don't know. She's Eastern European, and I don't think she subscribed much to like the idea of the whole coronavirus thing anyway. So I was like, just come in, please just wear a mask. And like, I don't even care what we catch, but my house needs to be clean once a week. Like, I don't, it was really, and I'm not saying that was the right thing to do, but at the time it was like, I was pregnant. It was my survival. So my kids were in and out of school a lot. And so what I found was we had to have some level of routine. Okay. Sometimes my kids would just not be in their Zoom classes. I have to kind of just let it go and be like, they will catch up eventually. Right. Which was hard for me because I'm a very like, I don't want to say I'm a very caring mom. Everyone is a caring mom. Okay. I just like, things matter a lot to me. Like my kids' education just mattered like so much. I'm like, what if they miss things? And then their teachers will think I'm a horrible mother because I'm not prioritizing their education, And at some point I was like, when the teachers called, I'm like, I noticed he hasn't been showing up so much. I'm like, listen, I'm pregnant. I'm working, I work with people in the States. I'm working late at night. I don't have the energy right now to like police my kids on Zoom all day. I can't do it. Like I can do it for a couple, classes in the morning. And that's pretty much as far as my energy goes. And they have to just understand that. And that's the thing. I think like what COVID did was showed us what we were capable of, but also showed us like sometimes you gotta just like, pride is not gonna, it won't take you very far.
Right.
Like you have to just like, you gotta just let it go sometimes. And I did, and I let things go. I started getting my kids to do their own laundry. That was a really big thing. Like I washed their laundry. I sorted out for them their baskets. And at that point, it's their problem. Like if they put it in their drawers, that's great. If they leave in the basket and it gets all wrinkled the whole week, I don't care. It's washed, it's clean, it's there, right? And I like remove myself from that issue, right? And I was able to do that from a lot of my household things by like just making it other people's responsibility. And that's again going back to like it's not our natural tendency to do that, right? Like we always feel like it has to be our responsibility. So I'm like, you know what? I guess because I grew up with mostly sisters, like I had two brothers, but we were mostly girls, and like. So I was like, I guess because all my boys were boys, I just didn't see them as capable of doing things as they actually were. And then I was like, you know what? You can learn to cook. You are old enough. You're 11. My two oldest ones were 11 and 9 years old. I'm like, you're 11 and 9 years old. You can damn well learn to cook, right? And they did. And, they started making us dinner once a week. And it was like really interesting dinner, right? Like it was like one night they made like an apple pizza, which I'm pretty sure was meant to be a dessert. But they made it themselves. Like they even made homemade applesauce. It was amazing. And I was like, you know what? Like they also learned what they were capable of. And I think that was a gift to them as well.
100%, especially because, I talk a lot about like dismantling the patriarchy, and a lot of it comes down to for women's rights and because of the damage it's done to women. But I also talk about how it's not just women that suffer, and men aren't able to show up as their fullest selves because the patriarchy is all about putting us into these very narrow gender roles. So this is a great example of you saying like, I had this conditioning to think like, oh, they're boys, they're not capable of doing this. But then when you actually tested that theory, it was like, no, they're actually capable. And now look at what they're doing. And like, I'm sure are taking a lot of like self-satisfaction in the fact that they were able to do this thing and by themselves. And like, what a gift that is.
Yeah. And I should just point out again that, like, I'm saying I am married. I realize I have not mentioned my husband in any of this. The reason I've not mentioned my husband in any of this is because he is an EMT and an ambulance driver. And so where everyone else's husbands, not everyone else's, but many husbands were like now working from home, or we're home with them more. He was home less, because the problem was,
So hard.
because there was so many people going to the hospital at any given time during the whole like outbreak. A lot of people, in MDA, which is like these, the Israeli, emergency services, a lot of people were having to go into quarantine, and then they were short a lot of people. So he was working even more than he normally did. All right. So I was literally home pregnant with 4 boys who were thoroughly sick of each other's faces. And like he helps when he's around. But again, if he did a night shift the night before and he has an afternoon shift the next day, he has to sleep in the morning. Otherwise he won't be able to work.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I'm saying, and he is super helpful when he is home. Like, I think he's amazing, and like it's got to the point where he can, I'll be in here doing calls at night, and he'll just clean up the kitchen, like shining, like I would do it, like, and because he knows like that's important to me. Like like having that clean sink at the end of the night is just really important to me. Right. So like he really, he does his best, but again, he's not around that much. So I had to like realize that like I can't depend on other people, and I have to like make things happen for myself. And I think that like a lot of it, and a friend of mine who has, bless her, she has 10 children and she homeschools them on purpose. Okay. So like I have like so much respect for her. Her name is Ashley Bufa, and she has this like smart kids chore system, which I signed up for like back, when I got pregnant. I was like, yeah, I need this like right now. Like I seriously need this now, because I'm gonna have a baby and I can't do all the things. And she basically she changed her thing to call it the home CEO. And I think that a lot of the qualities of being a good CEO help you be a good manager of your family too, right? Because it's basically the same idea. I mean, you're not hiring, you're not hiring. You already have a
bad
team.
employees.
Yeah, you have a team in house already, literally. But again, listen, for you it's different because you have 2 very little kids and who need supervision on a regular. Like, it's I could say I did it without childcare, and I did. There was no childcare. It was me. I was the childcare.
Mm-hmm.
But you have small children, right? And there's no one like older to watch. It's not like you have older siblings who can keep an eye on them. Like I can give my baby to my son and be like, watch her. She plays on the floor now. She crawls around. I could say, okay, sit in the playroom with her and watch her, and you can play on the phone or whatever, but make sure she's not putting anything in your mouth, and you can check the floor and make sure there's nothing dangerous, right? There's a very, very big difference. I think people have to realize that too. Like, sometimes you need the childcare. And at this point, I'm actually speaking to my neighbor, and I'm planning on sending her out to my neighbor for a few hours, a few days a week, to again, so I can have that time. But again, she's 8 months old. I have not had any childcare since she was born. So now it's just a lot of work at night. That is the time that I know my kids are in bed and I can get work done, and it's going to be quiet. And that is what it is now. It's a season, and it's going to change. Right. And now that people are getting, in Israel, a lot of people are getting vaccinated. So it's definitely much more like circulation, and I can hire a mother's helper a couple days a week. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think that people think like, oh, I can't afford to get a nanny full time. I'm not going to be able to work. Right. Like it's very, like, people think that I need to like go all the way, but you don't need to go all the way. Like there are in between little options that you can if you're creative, you can find a way. And like, that's what I'm basically doing. That's my neighbor is amazing. She lives upstairs for me. She's a cute little dog, and I want my baby to not be scared of animals. So it all works out, and she has a couple of daughters who are, like my kids, and they were happy to come between like 4 and 8 before the whole pandemic thing started. They were able to come like between 4 and 8, help me, with dinner and stuff. I could lock myself up in my office for a couple of hours, and then they would clean up at the end of the day. Like, it's not all or nothing. You do not need to like send your kid out to full-time daycare or have a full-time nanny or like, you can do things in little bits. And I think that's what a lot of people miss, right? Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. And I know I'm guilty of having some of that black or white thinking and thinking this,
me too.
It's got to be all or nothing. And that it is such a good reminder that like, no, you can get little bits of help. But one thing that was coming up for me when I was listening to you talk is, so yes, during this pandemic, you have not had childcare. I didn't have childcare all of 2020 either. And now I do. But I'm wondering, like, yes, you did it that way. It is possible, but what is your ideal? Like if it were no pandemic and we're just kind of talking like, okay, things are, quote unquote, back to normal. and you're a mom of whether 1 or 10 kids, like, do you think the ideal is, yeah, you would have some childcare, you would have some, so you have some dedicated time to work,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Because
think
that's me. Do you know what I mean? That's me. And like, also, I mean, granted, this is my first baby in almost 5 years, and I just love being with her, and I just want to spend a lot of time with her. So even the idea of sending her out for a few hours for me, like, just feels like, oh my god. But on the other hand, I realize that I work best. Like between like 10 and 1 is
mhm,
generally like my best like mental working time. Like I know that, like in the morning, obviously not.
yeah.
I mean, sometimes at night too, actually, sometimes. But like, so I'm like, you know what? Like, she will be okay. It's good for her. And I don't need to send her out to like a whole like daycare of 25 children, right?
Right.
Again, I found a creative solution, right? With a neighbor who has, some older kids. She doesn't have like a lot of like, a lot of little kids that's overwhelming for her.
Right.
And so for me, that is optimal. Like, finding that like that middle ground where it's not like, it's very hard to find a full-time nanny here in Israel. It's not something that's a common thing, I think.
Mhm.
And like, it's just because there's just, I don't know what it is. Like, I know like in London where my husband's from, like there are a lot of like, students who come in and, and they're like au pairs for a lot of people there
Mhm.
and stuff. There just really isn't that much here, and people tend to get married younger. So either they are in school and not interested in being around kids because they're not, or they're married and they have their own kids. Like it's really hard to find like those in between people who
Yeah.
like don't have kids or don't have little kids they need to take care of, but also want to take care of someone else's kids, and don't have it
Right.
as like an official daycare.
Right.
So, but yeah,
Okay.
so I do not think it's optimal. I do not think that is the ideal thing to do, to try to do it all yourself. It was
Right.
out of necessity, all right. But again, what I want people to realize is that it's possible. The point is, it's possible. I think a lot of people take a lot of their life situation, whatever circumstances, and they make excuses like, oh, I can't do this because whatever, because I have kids, because I'm, whatever. My husband works full time because I have a full time job, because I didn't finish high school, right? Like there are so
They're
many, and
all
I like to
just
call myself
excuses.
like to my clients, I call myself like the excuse buster. Like, give me an excuse, and I can match you, and like not like to minimize anything that people are going through, for sure, right? And
Right.
again, like, I'm not a single mom, I don't know how single moms manage this through this pandemic. I do not know, right? Because again, my husband, when he was home, he was helpful,
Mhm.
to the best of his ability. But I do like, I would say like 75% of the home management and childcare and everything in here is me,
Yeah.
maybe even more.
Mhm.
So is it possible to get your business started and start getting up and running, even if you have no childcare and no cleaning help and whatever? Of course, it's possible.
Right.
Is that what you should be striving for eventually? No.
Right.
You
Right.
know, like that's
So
that's the thing.
so your program is called how to or Baby Proof Business Accelerator, and
Yes.
I believe inside of it you teach this 3-part framework. Can you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about what your framework looks like?
Yeah. Sure. Exactly. So again, so it kind of stems first of all, kind of from the offers. So I call it like the kind of the three, like I call it the simple framework, right? Because it's simple to market, simple to manage, and simple to deliver. Okay,
Mhm.
so simple to deliver means it has to be an offer that fits with your life. And I'll give you an example, right? A lot of people now are doing VIP days, right?
Mhm.
Which I love. I'm building my website like solely on like 3 VIP days from a designer that I know. Like it's the best. It's the best thing
Yeah.
ever. But I did a VIP day. My baby was about 4 weeks old. I ended up finding myself on a Zoom call with a client. Thank God, because the camera was off, so she didn't see all this happening.
Mhm.
I was on a Zoom call with a client, and during that 3-hour call with her, I nursed my baby, changed my baby's diaper, dirty diaper, okay, blowout, pumped, put her to sleep in the baby carrier, jiggled her around the baby carrier while I was talking to my client. Then she woke up, nursed her again, pumped, changed the diaper again. Like all this was happening
Yeah.
while I was on this call. Okay. And I got off the call with, like, you can imagine my adrenaline levels at that point were like at like
Yeah.
a 300. And I was like, yeah, so this is not going to work for me right now. It's
Mhm.
just not. It's not going to work for me. Right. So what I want people to realize is there are so many different ways that you can create offers that do work for you and do work for your lifestyle, right? And now I do like kind of like a hybrid VIP day where I do like a call the evening before, on an evening, and I'll do whatever work I need to do throughout the next day, not during like between this hour and this hour, because I can't have a baby, right? And then I'll do a wrap-up call at the end of the next day. So technically like a 24-hour sort of thing, but that's how it works for me. And you know what? My clients have not complained about it, right? And it works for my lifestyle now, because I can have my quiet call with my clients at night when my kids are sleeping, and my quiet wrap-up call when my kids are sleeping, and get the work done throughout the day when I have the time to do it, right? And that's why I think I just encourage my clients to kind of be creative, right? And think like kind of outside the box a little bit. So that's like the first part. It's like simple to deliver, right? It has to be something that you can actually do, right? Like you don't want to promise something you can't do and then end up letting your client down. That's gonna just shoot you in the foot, basically. So that's the first thing, is simple to deliver. And the second one is simple to market. Again, I think people feel they have to be like everywhere all the time in order to like successfully market their business, and I don't think that's true. Right. I really do feel that if you have like one or two primary places where you're showing up on a very, very, very consistent basis, and you know that your people are there, you will get people in the door. You will get clients. And I know this, right? I did this for a while on LinkedIn. Like that's how we originally connected, because you're like, oh, you're a LinkedIn person. I did it for a while on LinkedIn, and I showed the hell up on LinkedIn, and I messaged people and I connected with people, and I got a lot of clients through LinkedIn. And my other one was Facebook groups. It's pretty much LinkedIn and Facebook groups. Those are like my two main places where I was like showing up on a regular basis, and it really, really worked for me. So again, I don't think that you need to be creating so much content and like being everywhere and commenting on everything. You can dedicate like 30 minutes a day to marketing your business, and that can be effective. Okay. And so that's kind of what I teach, is like the second part is like the marketing part of it. And then the third part is simple to manage. So again, I also want the marketing and the offers, need to have systems, right? You need to be able to outsource when necessary, like we discussed, like delegating not when you're like choking, right? But before you get to that point, so that you never get to that point. And you have to have these consistent systems of marketing and delivering and of managing, whatever team you have, which is, for me, until now, it was pretty much like me and a VA and like a couple of contractors here and there. Only now am I really starting to grow in like a much bigger way. So it's basically simple to market, simple to manage, simple to deliver, and all that together makes it simple to scale, right? Because if you have offers that fit in with your lifestyle, right, that can be potentially leveraged, and you have marketing that's easy to deliver, can deliver consistently in very, very small amounts of time per day, and you have systems that are working for you, then you can scale your business, I truly believe, to $10,000 a month and more, honestly. And I don't truly believe it. I know it because I did it.
Right. And so in your program, are you teaching people how to create an offer like this?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's like so people, if you're listening and you're like, yes, I want to create an offer like that, go check out Yael's program and learn how to do something like that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. My thing is, I'm not going to say like, this is the one offer you need to have, or this is the one way you need to do it, because you can't do that. Everyone's life is different. Right. But what I do is I do give my clients options, and I help them kind of workshop their ideas into offers that work. Like for example, one of my clients is a social media manager, and she was like, I'm trying to think of like, I need to get some money and like a quick cash injection. And so I was thinking about doing like, 1 hour like strategy calls for $97. And I was like, okay, how many of those do you want to sell? She goes, I don't know, maybe like 10, because I could use like another, maybe I could get $1,000 in the door, maybe turn some of those people into clients. And I was like, okay, she's home now with 3 little children, okay, who are not in school. I think she has one of them in school, but 2 of them are home, okay? And I was like, do you have 10 hours to spare to just give away for $97 each? And she's like, I don't think I really do. And I was like, okay, so let's find an offer for you that's also a good kind of like intro offer that you can still sell for that price.
Right.
But will work for you. And we got settled on social media audits, which she can do in her own time. She can pre-record them, send them off to a client, and she can still sell them. She can still upsell them into working with her later, right? But it's in a way that works for her life, right? She can do it quickly while her kid's napping, right? Like, and if the kid wakes up, she can pause it and go back to it later. You know what I mean? That's the idea. The idea is to kind of be creative and figure out the ones that kind of work around your life. And once you do that, you'll see that like there's no like shoulds or have to. It's really like what aligns with you. And I think that, I just encourage people to kind of be creative and kind of think outside the box a little bit, because you can find like there's so many options, honestly, and so many ways people can use your help without it being the way it's always been done.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Okay. I love it. So we're coming up on
Thank
the
you.
end here. I have a couple quick lightning round questions for you, but before we get there,
Okay.
tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my website's actually in the middle of being created. So, I mean, technically it's yaelbendahan.com. You can find a link to my Facebook group on there. But you can find me on Facebook, as Yael Bendahan. And you can, if you want to check out my program, you just go to workwithyael.com, or the link should be below. So I know you're going to have the link in the show notes.
Yeah.
So you can check me out there. And yeah, connect with me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/yael.bendahan, or Facebook at the Yael Bendahan, or Instagram at the Yael Bendahan, right? So it'll probably all be down there too. But yeah, I'd love to, send me a DM, let me know that you heard me on here. I love hearing like if people have gotten anything from this. Like I would really love to know, because I just feel like all moms need to know that this is possible for them. Like this is like my life's work.
I love it. I love it.
Seriously.
Okay, so quick lightning round. It's just 5 questions and just first thing that comes to your mind. So,
Okay.
what is your favorite way to make time for self-care?
Oh God, reading. I mean, I'm an obsessive reader. So like if I can just like that's my self-care, and I can read doing pretty much anything. I tried reading while giving birth to the baby. That was the one thing I couldn't do. Everything else I could. So I've read while rollerblading, I've read while washing dishes, like I've read while doing all kinds of interesting things. So yeah, that's pretty much just like me and my Kindle reading like a historical romance novel is that's like my easiest way of winding down. Which is, by the way, Bridgerton was not a Netflix series first. It was a series of books. And I stand by that, because so many people are like, oh my gosh, this new thing. It's not. Okay. I read these like 15 years ago. So just have to put that out there.
Okay, what is one tool or strategy that you use to help with time management?
Okay. So kind of two. And at any given time, so one is batching. Okay. So batching obviously is like, it's, we all know what batching is, right? Doing, so, a whole bunch of, a whole bunch of videos, a whole bunch of stuff at the same time. But what I will say is the other thing is what I'm using right now, because of my lifestyle, because I have a baby who is unpredictable, and that's breaking things down to little tiny pieces. So if I will take any given task and break it into small little bits, that for me is working now better, just because if I waited to do things till I had like 2 full hours to batch it out, I would never do it. So if I can break these big tasks into like micro tasks, I'm able to get a lot of micro tasks done in small periods of time. And that enables me to get a lot done, even though my life seems my life is very busy. It doesn't seem, it is.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you've got 5 little ones. That's crazy busy. Okay.
Really busy.
What is one of the most, so as a book lover, this will be a good question for you. What's one of the most powerful business or mindset entrepreneurial books you've read?
It's like trying to pick a favorite child.
I
Don't do that
know.
to me.
It could just be one that like you've read recently that was really powerful, or one you come back to again and again.
Okay. When I come back to again and again is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
Yes.
It just opened up so much for me, and it's like a just small, simple book, and it's such simple like ideas. But it really it just resonated with me. It just stuck. I don't know. It's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the ones I actually really read that I found really interesting was Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
Where he talks about like how successful people became successful, and I just found it super fascinating. So like I don't know, that's been a really interesting one.
That's a good one. Okay, cool. I haven't read that one before, but I love The Big Leap.
Yeah.
Do you have a mantra or a quote or an affirmation or anything you're telling yourself lately?
Yes. Just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Love it. So
Yeah.
good. So good. Okay. And last, this show is called Success with Soul. What does Success with Soul mean to you?
Um, I guess being able to work with the people who I want to work with, and the reason why I work with moms is because I feel so strongly that I want them to have everything. So being able to work with the people who I truly resonate with, without also feeling all that mom guilt of like letting my family down. And I thank God, like I'm able to do that now. So I think that's like, I feel like my soul feels fed by my work. Right. And I think that's what success with soul really means, is where you love what you do so much that you would like do it even if you didn't need to. And that's kind of what I'm doing now, which is the best.
Right.
So
Love
yeah.
it. Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you.